Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Environment and Place Scrutiny Committee. I am Councillor Kerry Bradburn and I am chair of this committee. This evening's meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Council's YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Can I ask anyone who has joined us online to switch off their microphone and camera when not speaking, please? And for those of you in the room, please ensure you turn on your microphone when you are speaking. Please be aware that we are not expecting a fire alarm this evening, and in the event that the alarm sounds, please exit the building by the nearest marked exit and assemble outside as indicated by George, who is our scrutiny officer this evening. We'll now move to the business of the meeting, so that item 2 is apologies. George, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Priestley.
Thank you, noted. I'll now ask everybody to please introduce themselves. So if we can start from my right, please.
Hi, Councillor Manish Verma, Councillor for Tatton Ward and Vice Chair for the committee.
Martin Petchy, Vice Chair.
Councillor Akash Naeem, member of this committee.
Councillor Khan, member of this committee.
Councillor Tony Yahure, member of this committee.
Lucianis Mahti, Major Projects and Development Manager.
Andy Dickinson, the Highways Strategic Asset Manager.
Graham Cox, Assistant Director, Highways and Transportation, Milton Keynes.
George Vincent, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you, everyone. We move on to item 3, which is disclosures of interests. Councillors to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or personal interests, including other pecuniary interests they may have in the business to be transacted, and officers to disclose any interest they may have in any contract to be considered. Do we have any interest to be declared? No? Okay, item 4 is minutes. We've got one set of minutes to agree tonight, which is from the previous meeting of this scrutiny committee that took place on the 11th of December 2025. I would like it noted for these minutes that Councillor Priestley has advised that she was on bereavement leave and submitted apologies to her group, but this was not passed on to the scrutiny officer. So are the minutes agreed? Okay, I will sign them later. Next is item 5, the Environment and Place Scrutiny Committee Action Tracker. The action tracker is in the agenda pack. Do any members of the committee have any contributions that they want to make? No, I did discuss with George that I went through this today just to see where we were, and I was pleased to see the sustainability strategy go to DD on Tuesday and see a lot of the things that we discussed at scrutiny included in the item that came forward. I've gone through roughly, but George said that obviously as this is the last meeting in this cycle, the decks will be cleared, so to speak. But there's a lot of good things that went into there. Do officers have anything that they wanted to update us on within the action tracker? I don't think there's anything relevant. No? Okay, in that case, I'll propose that we receive and note the updated action tracker. Are we agreed? Perfect.
The scrutiny.
This is it?
This is recommended to be.
Okay. Sorry, we've already done introductions. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself? Okay, welcome. Okay, if you want to make any further contributions tonight, just make sure that you use the microphone. All right, okay, and welcome. Okay, so we'll move on to the substantive items for this evening. So item 6 is Highway Tariff Junction Major Projects to 2030. For those registered to speak on this item, I will ask you to make your representations now. I would remind you that you're able to make a verbal representation only. So I believe we've got Alan Francis online, and I do believe he did share something with the committee, but unfortunately it was quite late on this evening. So apologies, Alan, I have not had a chance to look at that, but off you go.
Thanks very much, Chair. Alan Francis, representing the chair of Milton Keynes Bus User Group, wearing that hat this evening. Apologies for not being there with you in person, but bus services at this time of night are very infrequent, and I didn't fancy spending a lot of time hanging around at a cold, wet bus stop in order to get home. Now, the officer's report mentions key bus routes as one of the criteria for prioritisation, and as the chair of the bus user group, we're really pleased to see that. But there are several roundabouts on main bus routes that incur long delays that are not in the list in Appendix B and the map and Appendix C. So I want to suggest another couple of roundabouts that the committee could ask officers to include in the list in Appendix B and C. Milton Keynes Bus User Group produced a report examining delays to buses on the approaches to roundabouts. This was with a view to using the inside lane on dual carriageways as bus lanes. And this has happened on the V6. It's been like that for about 20 years, a bit near Ruxley, approaching, was it Grafton North roundabout. So there is a precedent for it. And that's what I asked George to circulate to you. This just kind of background to inform your discussion tonight. The two that I want to sort of highlight, which are highlighted in that report, are the Bancroft roundabout and the Roman roundabout, which are not in the list produced by the officers. Bancroft roundabout, which is where the V6 and the H3 crossed, has long delays and affects quite a few bus routes. And I was quite surprised because Ruxley roundabout, which is almost next to it on the V6, was included in the officers' list, yet that has far less delays at it for both cars and buses than the Bancroft roundabout, because Bancroft roundabout is not only the H3, but the H3 is also the A422, so there's longer distance traffic as well as the local traffic. So the queues are actually much longer at Bancroft roundabout. And if you're limited on numbers, I would suggest actually adding Bancroft roundabout and removing Ruxley from the list. Roman roundabout in Bletchley, where V7 and Watling Street meet, that's always congested.
30 seconds on.
Thank you. So I would suggest that that needs to be added into the list. And just sort of finally, a kind of an occasional thing, which is the Ashlands and the Denbigh roundabouts, which are both near MK Stadium. When the Dons play at home, that whole bit of V7 between those two roundabouts gets horrendously congested, and buses are held up for delays in excess of 10 minutes. So I think that could also be looked at. So I would urge the committee to ask officers to include Bancroft and roundabouts in the list, and to examine the Denbigh and Ashland roundabouts to see what can be done to help alleviate the delays on match days. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Before we go into the substantive item, do any officers want to respond to any of those points raised?
Yeah, thank you, Alan. So as we're going to go through the report in a minute, but as you can see, there's been quite an extensive prioritisation and traffic modelling process that's gone into selecting these roundabouts. What you see in the report and the roundabouts that we currently have listed is the short list. There is a longer list, but as we move through the design process for each of these roundabouts, until we get further into that, we don't know the potential cost of the works on that roundabout. So it could be that we can do more roundabouts than on this list, or maybe slightly less roundabouts than are on this list. So I'm happy to see where those ones you've mentioned, Alan, fit into our overall prioritisation. I can't commit to adding them or not at this stage, but we will take that away and consider it going forwards, depending on how far we get through the ones we're currently working on. As it sets out in the report, there's a whole rafter of facts that's gone into prioritising these. Cost is actually one of the last pieces, but obviously we want to get as many junctions for our money as we can. So as we move through, we're doing value engineering on them to say, okay, in a perfect world, we do this to junction A, but if we spend all our money on junction A, we won't do any of the others. So how can we balance up the need to cover the expected traffic levels in the future years versus value for money, I suppose, if you want to put it that, and get through as many as you can. And at the moment, we think we'll have enough money for everything on this list, but as we get towards the end, we may have to drop one or two off, or we may be able to add one or two going forwards.
Okay, Luciana, are you introducing the substantive item now, or are you splitting it up, or how are you doing it?
We weren't sure exactly what it was you were after on this item. So the report just sets out how we've prioritised them. It sets out the ones we're working on. Effectively, it says that they are tariff-funded junctions from infrastructure money. So it is ring-fenced to highways infrastructure projects. We need to bring them forwards. We're trying to deliver them by 2030 because that's when Tariff 1 is meant to be completed. So as you can see, the programme roughly is 2 to 3 roundabouts every year between now and 2030. And that's all kind of rolled into the report with all the things, as you said, what have we considered, what are the prioritisations? And I guess the question that you have asked is what impacts will they have? Well, the key one we're hoping they'll have is that they'll make sure that the traffic levels are manageable for coming years. But in terms of how we actually implement them and deliver them, we can't hide from the fact when you work on a major roundabout or close a major roundabout for a number of months to do it, it does have an impact on the traffic, but we try and deliver these in the most disruptive way possible. So, for instance, we've recently done Brinklow. We did that all at night. There was additional cost to doing it at night, of course, but we felt that that was a suitable way of delivering that. And all the feedback we've had so far from Brinklow has all been very, very positive, that it looks good, the traffic flow is much cleaner, much faster. So, but in terms of all the things we've considered, is it supporting economic growth? Is it doing what the infrastructure fund required it to do? Does it meet the traffic model in the future years? Is it balancing good value for money? Is it helping public transport? All those kinds of factors have all come into it, and this report sets them all out, but we weren't quite sure what exactly it was you were after from the report.
Well, in that case, then what I'll do is assume that everybody in the committee has read the report, and so then open it up to councillors to ask questions of the officers as they're here in front of us, and then we can kind of go from there. Because obviously, Alan's submission has already asked, prompted you to ask a question. So why don't we just open the floor up to questions, and then we can go from there. So does anybody want to start off? Akash.
Yep, it's just a very quick one. In the Task 3 programme, where it has the design construction and post-construction, what does post-construction involve? Because it seems to vary as well by roundabouts. Some have 4 months and some have a lot more.
I'll try to explain. Post-construction, when we, for example, like Brinklow, we finish the works in October. We say the substantial completion works is finished, and then we're doing like a remedial work list, a snagging list, and then the contractor go there, and they've got a time under the contract to go there. Can last 52 weeks in general a year, and then when we say post construction, we talk about health and safety file as well. What they need to do. They needed to do the as-built drawings as being constructed, because we design it the roundabout. But when you go to implement it, maybe a simple example, we may have to move a gully 2 meters, or maybe we need to a half of meter, 200 mil, and then it's slightly different than we got the design. We may have to put an additional ducting. We may have to change a little bit the chamber. So it's small things like that, and then we capture all these changes and call as built. As part of the health, this is one part of the health and safety. So all the materials, for example, we talk about Brinklow, we install, you look at the traffic signals mast, and then they come with the maintenance manual, how we go to maintain, all the guarantees of the product, how long they go to last, if they need to be replaced, if there is if it's been damaged. So the contractor provides us all this. So if we had to adjust the land boundaries, if you had to adjust the highway boundary, all this legal stuff go inside all the rest. So this is varies, depends on the complexity. Maybe this post-construction take longer. And then they do the remedial works, we go back, and then we say, great. Maybe say, not great, you need to go back and do something else. This is why the post-construction can take longer.
Manish?
So I will get used to it. Just a thought, two of them. One was, when I was looking at the list of junctions shortlisted, I thought one of the major emphasis will be is connecting ones, along the 4-1, good example is the first roundabout from Buckingham Inn is the 4-1, which is one of the major bottlenecks. Again, getting out of MK is another major bottleneck. I was seeing Kingston out there, which recently went through an upgrade in any case, and it's back on the list. So I'm just trying to understand. I know it says you had independent advisors and all those things. Were they instructed to focus in the central bit only, or go outside?
So Milton Keynes has a thing called a multimodal model, which is our base, effectively traffic model. And then they build in all the known developments that are coming in the future. And then they increase the traffic by a certain percentage each year that they think it will naturally grow. And then they run that model, and then that shows us where they're forecasting the bottlenecks for future years. Obviously, there's a bit of local knowledge goes over the top of that as well. And that's why Kingston is in there. Kingston was upgraded some years ago now. I mean, everyone says it's recent, but time flies past. It was some time ago. So that's how they produced the model on where they think the bottlenecks are. Like I said, there was there was a long list, but when I joined, the list was 21 junctions, and now it's down to 10. So, and although they're prioritized the worst 10, if you like, first, it's very close. They're all a problem, but we just don't have enough money to do all 20 or all 40, what was on the original list. So we have to pick the ones that really stand out as ones that we must do first. And different people have perceptions, because depending on what their travel patterns are as to when they see, they go, oh, that junction's always terrible. But the model shows it's not as terrible as this junction for longer periods and all that kind of thing.
No, fair enough. No, the reason I raised the Tatano roundabout on the V1 is because it's been part of the planning for the last 2-3 years on a regular basis. First with Salden Chase, now with Shenley Park coming in, and every time the model, what is it called, multimodal, multimodal, yeah, has always stated the traffic out there and the potential increase. And we know, based on the recent planning committees, have been that the traffic is going to be X times there, isn't it? But still, it did not get the cut. I'm surprised.
It wasn't just one set of modelling. Like I said, as you can see, this has been developed over a number of years and a number of iterations. And we have tweaked the order we're doing them in. So one of the things we found is that, because as we know what we're going to do to a junction, we then feed that back into the model itself. So changing one junction slightly improves that junction, obviously, but it slightly has a knock-on effect to maybe a junction over the next one down that we weren't actually prioritising doing, because it might have been number 13 or 14 on the list, for instance. But what we need to do to that one to make it work moves this one up to number 10, and suddenly it is just about a priority. So we're trying to balance a whole number of things here, but the list is fairly robust. We have been through it lots of different times.
More of what I noticed, design runs over months. Construction is small. Is that normal?
Yes.
That's normal. I think everybody's sorry. I just found it funny, design over a year or 2 years and construction only 2 months or 3 months.
Because as we design things, they go through 3 sort of separate designs, effectively. Outline and feasibility design. So can we actually do something to it? Yes. Okay. So we've got an idea what we want to do. Then sort of medium design, where we work it up into a workable thing, and then we see what impacts it has on the model and all the other bits. And then finally, yes, it's in priority. Yes, it's ready to go. And then it goes to detailed design, where it's literally how deep are we going to dig? What blocks are we going to use? All the rest of it. And then it goes into build. Depends how complex it is, but the build is usually a lot shorter than the design, because they're always back-ended like that.
I've got a request. Yes, sir. Can I see the feasibility study of the Tatton roundabout? Just one, whatever came. You can send me. I will have a look offline. That's fine.
You talk about design, you talk about feasibility. We've been designed for like 3-4 years because you think about it quite complex. You look about the Kingston, for example. When we're doing Maxton now and Brinklow, we affect the back Kingston. So, and then you talk about all the new developments and talk about the A41. You talk about the dual link from. This is all taking considerations, and then the design is very, like Graham said, is very fluid. When we design, we discover, for example, maybe we discover we got a main gas, a pressurized, and then we have to change the design because the risk is too high to touch that area. Because if you hit the utility, then maybe we'll go to cut the supply in Milton Keynes for 2/3 of the population. You know, so it's kind of why the design. But the good news here, when you go to construction, we know exactly what we are doing to the minute details. If you go to the construction without the design, you do know what's going to happen. You go to stop and go back to design, and then the cost is going to be higher.
Just the V1, if I can just see the feasibility, what was done around it. Just a Tatton roundabout. Yeah, it's 4:1 V1. No, that's fine. I'm asking. No, not design, the feasibility. I'm just trying to understand how it did not make the cut. Yeah.
I guess that kind of follows in from what Alan's point were about Bancroft roundabout, Roman roundabout. I guess people are looking for the long list, I guess, is
Okay. Yeah, I will have to go back. There was reports done at the time, going back before me, for instance, on the roundabout. So if I can find those reports, yes, we can show them to you.
And sorry, Martin, I am gonna come to you, but whilst we're on Manisha's point, can I assume though that a roundabout like Manisha's talking about, obviously where there's lots of development forecast throughout that way, that doesn't mean that, you know, in 2040 when we're looking at more projects that roundabout wouldn't necessarily then make it on.
I think we need to be clear here that this is literally what we're trying to do up to 2030. So Tariff 2 will come along, and more than likely there will be an ongoing programme of this in reality, but we've just got to allocate the money we've currently got. So your round it might be in 2031 or 32 or something. I wouldn't know that at this point.
Yeah. Sorry, my apologies. I know it's going to double, you know, out there, maybe triple even, you know, with Shenley Park and Salton Chase. Salton Chase people are already moving in. You know, Newton Lays already have people have moved in. So I just want to see 3 years back, did they actually look 4 years ahead or not? Which it says here they do look at future projections. So it clearly says, yeah. And I'm just surprised how it did not make the cut. You know,
this is tariff projects, so it could be that roundabout would be a separate piece of work based on section 106 or section 38 agreement works, 278 works, sorry, agreement works in relation to the developments.
and I saw Salton Chase planning application. There's nothing in there for that roundabout.
So it would have been separately modelled anyway for those developments.
Yeah. I'm not doubting you guys. I'm just trying to.
Okay, we'll have to dig into that one a bit and see what we can find.
Martin, sorry that I cut over you.
That's right. 2 questions. The first question is, at some stage, we're going to be remodelling a lot of roundabouts for our famous fake tram, the MRT. Do any of these roundabouts come into the MRT network? Or, I mean, we're not going to be sort of rebuilding a roundabout and then 5 years later rebuilding it again.
So I suppose this is a bit linked to what Alan was saying. So not all the roundabouts are signalised, so it depends what we feel is the best design for the roundabout. But where they are going to be signalised or proposed to be, they will have what we call a new Scoot 8 AI-driven system built into them that has the capability of knowing, they all talk to each other, so they become smart roundabouts, if you like. They change different things at different times. So the Denby roundabout and other things that Alan was mentioning on match days and event days, that will become potentially a tidal flow system. The lights will know what they need to do at different times. And so there is also the capability. It's not necessarily deliberately built in specifically for MRT, but they do have the ability to have bus sensing built into the traffic signals, so they can prioritise a phase if we need them to, if and when that comes forwards.
Right, yeah. And the second question is, in the longer report which I don't suppose you've seen, because he sent it out just this afternoon, that Alan sent us, he suggested that we might not be allowing enough priority in our assessment for a bus full of 60, 80 people compared with a car, a few cars, one person. How do we sort of say, well, a bus full of 80 people is more important than 5 cars?
The design of the roundabouts at the moment doesn't prioritise buses over cars. They're all treated equally. But as I said, the signals are future-proofed and can be designed to sense buses and to give their arm that they're on a prioritisation. So they would move through. And as perhaps we'll talk about Monkston, which is the next one to come, which is sort of a unique roundabout, first one for Milton Keynes of what we call a hamburger design. So it has a straight through element to it, which effectively is put on the priority route where the most traffic flows. So that would more than likely be some of the bus routing potentially. So that would have its own prioritisation anyway.
Tony.
Good evening. Thanks, Chair. My question, just very, very quick one. We've got 4 years to go to spend the money, and we have so much work to do. What is the chance that we would miss something or we would lose the resource by not completing the task that we want to do?
So the tariff manager is Paul Van Geet. He's not here tonight. So he is really the overall client for this work because he manages the money. We're the delivery mechanism for spending that money. We have got, as you can see, a fairly robust type program to deliver that work. We're already in, as I mentioned, in discussion with Paul about what comes next and tariff 2 and things like that. So I don't see at the moment any risk to non-delivery of all the, or non-committal of all the money. I mean, that's a fair question, but I can't answer that 4 years out. The programme says we're going to do the work. So, and at the moment we're getting through the work on programme, so I can't see that we wouldn't.
It's just not stated anywhere in the reports that, well, it's quite an ambitious program.
I'm happy to ask. I'm happy to ask Paul Van Geet to write to the chair to just confirm what the process is if the money wasn't committed.
Any other committee members want to ask? Oh, Luciana.
I can say the program is ambitious, but the team is very excited about the program, okay? And we are full pace. We are designing full pace, and we've got a contractor is very excited as well. So from the team, from the delivery mechanism, we are very excited about the projects, and we are working as hard as we can.
I'm sure you guys are. And as an engineer myself, I'm excited to see
Okay.
and how this is going. Yes.
Well, we're very happy to have help.
Yeah. I will do, but
and that's a good point actually. I mean, it is an ambitious program, but it is a big program of large scale infrastructure interventions. So it's a real upgrade for Milton Keynes. It really is.
Chair. Thank you. Thank you. Just following up Tony's, sorry.
Sorry, I got distracted. Sorry, Tony, have you not finished? Sorry, Mo.
just a question from a colleague of ours asking about the works envisaged on the Kingston roundabout. What's the extent of works envisaged today?
but Graham did warn me that this is the plan that's it as it is today, but obviously it could change. It's still in the pre-design design.
It's literally an outline best guess that works for the traffic so that we could get an outline budget so we could start some of the value for money discussions around it. But yes, there it is. Is there anything you want to say about it, Luciana? What you're thinking at the moment on it?
At Kingston, there are a lot of surveys going on. We are doing a lot of surveys with site investigations. We are trying to understand, and we are with that option. It works at the moment in the from traffic modeling. So if you look at a kind of a hamburger, we cut it through there. There is a 4 lanes, and yeah, at the moment we are walking through and trying to find out all the details of utilities, land, and everything else.
Okay.
And you can read here, you can see all the advantages. I don't know if you can read from there what we are looking there.
We can,
Yeah.
we can add this slide. We can send this slide around so everyone can see this since everyone seems quite interested in Kingston. We can send this slide around, but as we said, it's very, very early, so it may not end up like that, but that's our first.
Hey, it looks really good. Keep it like that. There is a big problem solving. Looks really good.
So we'll add that, George. We'll add that slide into the pack.
Or can I suggest that actually, if you've got similar for the list, we just have all of them, so we're not showing preferential treatment just to Kingston.
We do have all of them.
All of them.
Roundabouts, yes.
Yeah, as the committee is quite interested in that, if that could be circulated after the meeting, that would be great. Perfect. Mo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just following up Tony's question about 4 years to delivering the massive project we have. If we don't finish off in 4 years, then it's lapped over to 5th year or 6th year, is our money's been ring fenced or is going to be used somewhere else?
The money is as it is sort of enhanced Section 106. Really, it's tariff funding. It is specific for infrastructure schemes related to tariff money, so it's set out quite prescriptively. So that's why I said I'll have to get Paul Van Geek to write to the committee to confirm what would happen with unspent funds at the end, whether he's able to reallocate it or do something else. But at the moment, he's given it to us and we intend to use it for this.
Right, any more questions? No? Okay. Oh, Mo?
Sean, as you mentioned about 106 money, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. Normally, when we pick up 106 money, there's a certain time you have to spend the money, or developers area, they can ask for it back. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that. So as you mentioned, 4 years, I don't think they will, but I'm just saying in some case, they'll probably come back saying, we haven't spent the money, so we can have the money back.
No, no, I said, sorry, so let me clarify. It's tariff funding money, but which is effectively a sort of glorified Section 106. But and it is time constrained, but it's government money given to us. So I'm not privy to what the mechanism would be if the money was not committed. I expect, I don't know, this is just the way these things usually work, that if we could show substantial starting on the project or substantial commitment of the money, they would probably let it hold over for another year or two, but Paul would have to confirm that to you.
Thank you. Anybody else before? No? Well, thank you, Tony. You asked my question about the risk of the funding. Martin, you asked my question about MRT, and Graham, you covered the disruption caused by the construction phases. So I've only got one question left, which you kind of touched on, but Brinklow's obviously been finished. So do we have any data from that project being finished, like any learning from it, any unintended consequences, anything that will be sort of used, the knowledge that we've got from that going forward in this programme?
Yeah, okay.
We are going to be doing some before and after modelling to see if we've actually had the impact that we want to have. Anecdotally, yes, it's much improved, but it would be nice to have some quantitative data to prove that. What was the other piece?
Any unintended,
any learning from
or any unintended consequences.
Not on that particular one that I'm aware of at all, but we may have other ones. Like I said, some have more of a knock-on effect to other areas than we may or may not expect. And in terms of learning, each scheme, we are having a lessons learned process afterwards of just, did we deliver it as efficiently as we could? Did we get the best value for money? Did our contractor perform as expected? We're building sort of more robust. We've already got KPIs in our contract, but it's hard to have KPIs against building something. So, but we are stiffening that up by reviewing the KPIs against project delivery stuff as well.
Just to add what Graham said, we installed some CCTV cameras there. So at the moment we are monitoring, we are monitoring how the junction function. If you look what I'm showing you, this is was the video we show.
The cars, but this is
The consultation.
what we should have done, and this is what the engagement information went out, show people what it would look like and what we thought the cars would do from the model. We can give you some links to this. We've got one for this and we've got one for Monkston at the moment as well, which you can see. Just on the engagement piece, obviously we engage quite heavily with the ward councillors in that area, because obviously we can't let them have too much input to the design because it ends up what it is, but in terms of them being fully aware of what we're proposing and how we're proposing, and when we're going to be sending notification letters and traffic disruption and things like that, we keep all the ward councillors fully involved.
Perfect. Right. So just a couple of actions then. You're going to provide us and Alan with the long list, I guess.
It's in
It's
in a couple of reports.
Or can you point us in the direction of where we might find? Okay. And then the design slides for each of the roundabouts. Yeah. And then I'm also thinking, if the committee agree with me, that perhaps it might be good that this committee sees an annual update on the project. I'm not asking you to come and present like this tonight, but just a note for information about, are you still confident that it's going to be delivered by 2030? That can obviously include the consequences that you talked about from Paul, if that's to be included. And then also some of this, so that we've got, and if there could be a short note about completed schemes. So obviously, or any changes. So I don't want to be, create an onerous piece of work, but I think because it's such a big project with such a short time frame, I do think it would be good for this committee to have sight of something. So I would suggest that we put that annual update, so February 2027, for that to come to this committee. Other committee happy with that recommendation? Okay, perfect. So thank you for this. It was really interesting, as the questions from the committee show. I don't think I need to say that we'll finalise the recommendations, because I think it is as I said. Does anybody have any other recommendations that they want to raise? No? Okay, so we'll move on to streetlights. We don't have anyone registered to speak, do we? No? Are we letting people go, or are you staying?
So just look at the Monkston. Look, so it's really exciting. Look, we're going to have the hamburger first the hamburger in Milton Keynes. It's going to be watching this space. It's going to be very nice. Yeah, and we are going to there. Let's show you there. We can send it to you this if you want it. Okay.
Thank you, guys, and I'm sure we could probably talk about roundabouts all evening, but we must move on to the city of roundabouts. We must move on to streetlight repairs and impact on residents and community safety. So I guess, Andy, is this over to you?
It is.
If you are happy to, I mean, we are going to assume that the committee members have come well prepared and they've read your very good report. So you don't have to go through it in detail.
If they have, we'll maybe follow the same format of the previous report and take questions.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have, who wants to start? I'm not going to say, does anybody have any questions? Who wants to start with the questions? Manish, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I like general knowledge here. So my questions are very general and I will go on a few specific examples as well. Yeah, mainly around my ward. Yeah. Now, streetlight is a common feature, and I was talking to Graham a few days back in a different meeting for a different aspect, right? Often we do not get the feedback, whether it's priority 1, priority 2, category 1, 1A, 14-day, you got different categories, yeah? Now, I'm not saying it's your issue, you define the categories, but as a resident, it's very difficult to know what the category is, yeah, because you're a layman. A lot of time as a counselor, we report this. We don't hear back as well. How do we close that gap? I'm not an expert to challenge your categories, yeah, or the way you prioritize it. I'm not an expert, but as a human being, if I'm walking on the street and the light is not there, it's bad, and I'll give you a specific example. We got a underpass which basically connects Kingsmead across to Westcroft. Often we get issues there and it takes weeks. Normally it's not overnight. Yeah. I just want to understand the whole process, On paper, it looks good. Yeah. We'll solve it in 1 day, multiple lamps out on the main road, 14 days. Bloody hell, that's a long time, just saying. So is this something, and this committee, this is all responsibility to say it doesn't look right to me, if you're going to take 14 days, multiple lamps out on the main road, just saying. Yep.
I mean, good. I mean, good. The comment with regards to feedback, you talking, sorry, excuse me, are you talking in terms of a formal response from the authority? I think certainly the feedback that we give to residents or anybody that reports streetlights goes through the front end Granicus system that the authority buys into, and it's a lot of standard. We can't tailor each individual response back to the customer. They're often very generic responses, and I mean I do report streetlights myself just to almost test to see what's coming back. We have recently reviewed and updated some of the responses to try and allow more tailored responses back to the customer. So for example, I know we're going on to talk about cable faults, and that's something that we've added into the pick list for a response. So when you report something that is then directly related to a cable fault, the customer will get a more detailed response back. So we are constantly looking at what we can do within the realms of what we're able to report back. It's often not a fix is never straightforward. After spending time in street lighting, no two faults and no two solutions are often the same. It's difficult to communicate that and tailor that to the exact problem for the thousands of inquiries we get every year. So we have to have generic ones, but we do look, and we have done recently, we've updated those responses to try and be a little bit more, to try and give something a bit more relatable in terms of actually what we've found and what we're going to do about it. But we were always, I think we're always looking to try and improve that. But it is sort of it's restricted within what we can actually respond to the customer with.
We work closely with customer services. So as Andy said, they're the front door. So the report, it comes in through customer services, through the Granicus system. Obviously, that creates a FS code, which comes through to us, which goes into our AMX system, which is our data system and our works ordering system. We instruct the work, the contractor does it, the timescales that they have to do it based in as set out in the report. Don't forget, there's a lot of complexity to some of that. They have to put in permits, they have to do traffic management. There's, there may be then technical things of, is it a power cable fault? Is it something that we can do? Is it something they have to get the power board to do? Is it something that's an insurance job that's happened? Because a lot of them are vehicle strikes. So all these things go into it. And then somewhere along the line, our guys are watching that all happen. They're communicating with the contractor through the different stages of work. And there are multiple responses that then go back, that they pick off of our AMX system, that are then put back to Granicus and then put back to the customer to try and keep them updated on the work. It's not foolproof. I think we could all accept that, but it is much better. And so we sit with customer services and regularly review that messaging to see if it is as generic but as specialism as it can be for those things, because we don't want to be too technical either, but at the same time we've got to convey to the customer that it's an electric power fault that's not within our control, and we've got to try and get that across somehow. So it's something we work on all the time.
I think you've already answered, but let me ask a bit differently, right? If you don't mind. I've got category 1 within 2 hours. Yeah, and I'll take another example, category 1A within 24 hours. In my experience, and all the councillors are here, I don't think so you even come to know within 2 hours if fault is there once it's reported. I have a feeling because, I get an instant reply, or maybe at least 2 hours, 4 hours. And believe me, the last 1 week, it's really good reply. They're coming very quickly now. But before that, I don't even get a reply that it's been assigned to your team. You get it? Or somebody is going to have a look. I don't even get that kind of responses
So
in 2 hours.
category 1 is emergency. So we do thousands of them every year. So we do go out to emergencies. They're unsafe for different reasons. So we do attend them. They're sort of done separately in a different way, often out of hours, during an accident or all sorts of things. So we do them, they're category 1. That's why for all safety related defects on the highway, not just street lights, for all safety related things, we have to statutory have a 2-hour response window. So we do that. In terms of whether we go and look at things, I know that's something that you sort of mentioned the other day in our meeting. There's a whole raft of things that go into that. When did we last inspect the area? We also have a thing called a Visala AI video of the area. So it might be that we have a look on that to see things. Don't forget, we've got specialists in the team, even more special, if you can believe it, than me, and definitely more special than Andy, who know these lights and know the systems, drainage specialists. And so when you report a light, they usually know it straight away. They go, yes, that one has come up as a problem, or I'll go and look at that, or I looked at that last week, or I'm looking at it next week. So they can quite often give an answer fairly quickly.
14 days.
Well, it's not 14 days to do the repair. Right.
Well, that's a customer services time frame piece, but the work. Go on.
No, as I say, those priorities there are purely for the contractor to have the work completed within those timescales. It doesn't mean that they have to wait 14 days. It's about efficiencies, prioritization, and making sure that actually the work is done within that time period. And we do measure them to make sure that they do hit those targets. And that is linked to the national guidance. So we follow national guidance and we align our local codes of practice for attendances in line with that.
But do you want to wait? Hold on to that, and I'm going to go to Mo and then Tony.
Thank you, Chair. So, street light. I've seen many of them, car accident or overnight accident and lamppost been pulled over. We see yellow tapes around, but it doesn't get fixed till quite a few weeks later. I know that probably the engineer's probably been out and probably isolated the electric and everything and left it then for weeks and months before they come back and put it back on. That's one set of questions. The other one, if the lights, I know the LED light we're using, if the light goes off in some, built-up area where the joggers goes in a late evening or people walk around, women walking around, if your light get reported, how long does it take before the light gets put back on or replacing the light bulb?
I'll take the first, the damage. For example, we had an RTC on the H3V9 roundabout, and it struck a feeder pillar. Now, the feeder pillar is the interface between the power supply and our network. Unfortunately, one of the legacies of Milton Keynes' sort of uniqueness has meant that a lot of these assets are designed and they're not off the shelf. You can't go to, Edmondson's or wherever and get a new feeder pillar and all the circuitry off the shelf. It has been built, and that took 8 weeks from notification to delivery and installation to get that back up and running. And unfortunately, a lot of our assets out there built by the Development Corporation through that very, very short period of time are unique. You only have to look at central Milton Keynes. We've got white chippings on the road. We've got granite, that great building materials, but incredibly expensive to look after. And likewise with a lot of the electrical assets, they're unique. The port crochets contain the control gear for all the street lights in Milton Keynes. There's nothing like it in the rest of the country. So we've got a program of we have to rip everything out and we upgrade it to standard equipment so that going forward we can respond a lot quicker, and we can ensure that we are getting lights back on as soon as possible. But it's a bit of a legacy of a new city, and I think the other thing that's worth saying is that Milton Keynes was built within a very short period of time. A lot of those assets are coming to the end of their design life, and we're getting increased numbers of failures, hence the reason why we've got more cable fault failures than we've had historically. It's just the assets getting to a stage in their life where they're no longer serviceable and they need to be replaced.
I think there is also another piece in here that when they're an insurance issue, so the contract requires our term service provider to undertake the work and then claim back the money later. And so it's incumbent on them to undertake all the insurance stuff. But there are occasions where if they're very clear on the insurance route that they're going to go, the insurance company may require our suppliers to get 3 quotes for work before they authorise the payment. That occasionally can come into the timeline and different things as well, depending on whether safety is overriding that factor.
Can I just come back? Thank you for that. I know Milton Keynes is young and we're growing very fast. I mean, fixing a light, 8 weeks, where there's insurance job or where there's our contractors going, ordering the parts and bringing back and installing a street light. I mean, realistically, 8 weeks or maybe even 10 weeks, it's not really right. We should prepare for it. We're a growing city. We're building hundreds of thousands of houses, more streets than anybody in England. And we kind of need to prepare ourselves for next generation to have those street lights, make sure they're on. 6 weeks, 8 weeks to build something from China or somewhere else to bring it here to install. We need to change our model probably to think about it.
I think I would reiterate something that's quite key in the report, is that the timescales are based on national timescales and national guidance. But more importantly than that, you're absolutely right. We need to be as quick as we can. And, there's what you're not seeing in the report is there is a high number of lights that they fix within a few days, and as a result of that, I think the key figure in there is that we actually have only got the report says 1.3, it fluctuates, but broadly 1.5-ish% of lights out at any given time. So when you look at the national average of about 5%, we're very, very good on the level of lights that are out. I know that doesn't mean anything if it's the light outside your house or the underpass that you walk home and all those kinds of things. I understand all of that. But we have to also bear in mind what the facts actually are. And we are actually very good at light repairs, even though, particularly at this time of year, it's high on everyone's agenda.
Just on that point, because I will come and see if you guys want to ask any questions, but I think I'm going to say something that's not, you know, there is a gap here, I think, in terms of our councillor perception, people's lived experience at the minute, and what you're presenting to us statistically. Because I think if I ask councillors around this table, how much casework are you dealing with not, you know, I'm not talking about your light faults that it's one lamp, you report it, and you know, I hear what Manish is saying in the sense that you report a light, you don't hear anything, or if you're lucky, the resident will say, oh, thank you, the light's back on now. But we don't actually always hear that from highways, which I take as a point about customer service interface and everything. But I also understand where Manish is coming from. And I want to pick up on what he said about communication, whilst appreciating the constraints that you guys are under in terms of the technicality and the nuances about how do you communicate with residents, so many different possibilities. So I think as a committee, we're not going to be able to change operational policy. I mean, these timeframes are national guidance, aren't they? And I mean, the report does show that Milton Keynes is doing really well, and we should applaud that. But I think as councillors in this room, we need to recognise that for our residents at the minute and for us, it's not necessarily reflective of the amount of things that we see. You know, we can see on the grid roads, we can see on the footpaths. So whilst I think we're in a good position statistically, I think from a councillor perspective, there is definitely something that needs tweaking on the communication side. So I think that's probably where you were going with your recommendation. But just before we go there, Akash, Martin, do you want to ask a question or anything? Oh. Tony. Oh, Martin, sorry.
Tony.
No, Martin, I went to you first, then Tony.
It's the effect of a streetlight being out varies from place to place. I mean, if the one outside my house were out, no great problem because there are, you know, two. But on the other hand, before Christmas, every single streetlight on the path from the bus stop I used to get home from the bus stop to civilization was out. I mean, presumably a complete coincidence, but the effect was that the path was plunged into darkness and was quite unsafe. Do you build into your assessment of priorities whether or not the issue is one of safety or not?
Absolutely, and that's why the appendix to the report shows effectively the matrix that we use to score and assess where we need to be. Safety is critical to that. Obviously, in reality, that often means that grid roads get more of a priority because there's just more traffic and they're higher speeds. But safety on a footpath or a redway may trigger that scoring mechanism as well. So it is generally slightly lower than high speed roads, but it depends on its location and how many lights and all those kinds of things as set out in the report.
And I think it is really important, and I know that this is something that we've had issues with in the past. The way that the report mechanism works on the website, you can only report one streetlight at a time. So if there's a number out, you've almost got to report each one. And that can be quite laborious and probably is not the best reporting mechanism for multiple lights that are out. The reason we do it is that we manage everything at an asset level. So each street light is managed individually. So all works are raised against an individual street light, which informs an individual inquiry. So there's linkages there. I've got a meeting with the customer care team because Granicus is being reviewed, and we're actually going to meet them next week for a workshop on exactly what we're talking about this evening. So, you know, it's an opportunity for us, certainly for me, to feed back what I've heard tonight to them, so that actually we can, you know, we can look at it again, because you know, it's something we're conscious that we are limited in what we can tell the public, and it's not always the best message really for you know, to inform them as to what's going to be done. So that's certainly something that we will certainly feed that back.
Can I raise another issue, which is not your responsibility at all, but if you're going to talk to the customer service team, you can pass it on to them, which is that if you go through the reporting mechanism onto the street lights, and they say, what street is it? And you say, whatever street it is, you get offered a map. And sometimes that map doesn't cover the part of the street that you want to report to. And I've encountered that a number of times, and it's very infuriating. So sometimes you have to put a different street in, and you get, as it were, the edge effect. For example, if you're reporting a grid road light, a lot of them, if you ask, say, Grafton Street, and you between X and Y, it's not there. But if you then say Eaglestone Roundabout, well, not that roundabout, but you know, if you say the name of the roundabout, you get the right map. But you have to know the trick to be able to report it.
Okay.
And
so we report that next week, and I will pick that up, because I actually sit on the customer experience board as well. So that's sort of the higher, how are we being with all of our council services outside. The portal, as we call it, into the GIS system. This is all a bit techie even for me, but there is a facility to zoom in and out. It doesn't always zoom very well, I think, to be honest, because it's quite.
doesn't work for me at all.
Okay.
It used to
Okay.
about a year ago.
So
and then
we will raise that with customer services, because obviously that's the front door system from them, but they're using a GIS system which is linking to our AMX system, so you can pick assets. There's all these systems trying to talk to each other, which sometimes, obviously, as you've reported, doesn't quite do what it's meant to. So we'll take that back.
But I think it's also important to say that one of the biggest issues that we have is people reporting a fault on a street light that's not the street light they're reporting.
Yes.
Because then we send, that goes to our contractor, they send an electrician out, they test it, street light's working, because it's been, you know, it's been reported on the wrong asset. So, you know, there are frustrations on our side, but there are, you know, excuse me, you know, I think we understand that there's frustration, certainly from the customer, and the feedback that is given. So we're always trying to, and we're always pushing the customer care team to try and improve and look at alternative ways of. Yeah.
In no way which you can apologise.
So another report it. Sorry, I reported it wrong.
Yeah, but it, you know, it is something, believe it or not, that's quite a common fault. People misreporting what the street light, and we'll go out and we'll fix it. Then the customer gets a response back to say this is resolved, when it hasn't been, but because of the mapping and, you know, misreporting.
Sorry, just to touch on what you said there. I was under the impression that the streetlights had a sensor on, so when they go off, the sensor stops reporting data. So let's say in that situation, someone reports a streetlight that's incorrect. Surely you might be able to work out actually within the vicinity it might be that one, or is that just not the case at all?
So okay, so what you're talking about is the central management system. So all of the upgraded lights, 98% of them have a node on that phones home every night and says, yes, I'm working and I've been on for this many hours, and we have the ability to see that, and we have the ability to turn the street lights up and down or on and off remotely. But if we did that for every report, we would have to go in and check if they reported the right one. Well, the system's saying one's out over here, they've reported that one. That one is showing us working. I see what you're saying. We could maybe, but we have to prioritize our resources into doing these things. We're not here to overly engineer how we do this. If someone reports it, pretty much it goes through the system and someone goes and looks at it. We do have the system so we can check things, and that predominantly is there really for us to remove what we call scouting. So that's a sort of historic thing where we would send teams out every night to different areas to visually go and see are they working. Very costly, very time consuming. Now it's all automated, we can see that. So it's took away a lot of that, particularly as we're bringing that fully online in April. But in terms of relaying that to cross-referencing it with customer inquiries, I think we could look at that, but it's not something we routinely do.
But I mean, the system itself, as Graham said, is rolled out. It is operational. We're doing a lot of testing to make sure that what we're seeing in the office is what's actually on the ground. One thing that the system will be able to do is it's effectively what it is. It communicates via a low frequency radio mesh network that's built on base stations around the city. So it allows us to, dim the lights, switch them on, turn them up if we need to turn them up. But it can, and we are looking particularly at doing a very quick automated check to make sure that actually, if that is the light that's been reported, but we're looking for some automation. So rather than a bod sitting in an office and checking to make sure that every report is actually valid, we're looking to do some automation. So we were talking with the company yesterday about all of this. So it's, I know Luciana said she's excited about major projects. We're excited about this because we can do a lot more with it, but it's something that's new to us. We're maximizing sort of carbon reduction, energy reduction, and we're looking to use it as fault reporting, but there are other things we can do with it, and hopefully, I mean, for example, we've been going on a series of the VOG walks, Violence Against Women and Girls walks, with the environmental safety team and the police, and we talked about if there's incidents in town centres, we can actually switch all the lights to full brightness. So that would assist the police to maybe deal with an incident. So they're the sort of other things that are a consequence of being able to control streetlights. So, we want to do more with it, and we feel we can.
I think ultimately the system really, when we get to full automation and full trust of it and it's working, we would hope that we know about the fault before the customer reports them. So in a lot of cases, they'd be fixed before the customer needs to report them. But at least we could be messaging more robustly back to the customer, yes, we're aware of that light. It is on a scheduled 14-day or 28-day repair or whatever, so that we're ahead of the game instead of relying on the customers to tell us stuff. So that's what the system's for.
It's like the tiniest follow-up question, but you just mentioned that with streetlights, you can turn them on full brightness. How bright are they? Is there like a percentage right now?
Yeah, it depends on where the light is as to what dimming we have either 2 or 3 stage dimming processes. So some will come on at full brightness at in the evening, then they'll dim to say 80% at 10 o'clock, then it will dim again at midnight up until 5 o'clock. So the sort of the dead period where most people, well, most sensible people are tucked up in bed, the street lights dim down. It's still above the minimum required lighting levels, but we're making those type of savings to maximise the energy. And we've just installed some products in Newport Pagnell that are effectively similar to a PIR in a building, so that they sense the levels of traffic. So as soon as the traffic levels drop down, the lights drop right down to 10%, and then as soon as traffic appears, they come back up. But they dim down very slowly, but they'll come up rapidly to ensure safety is maintained in the, you know, with the, you know, in the event traffic does start to appear on the road.
So whereabout is that in?
I can't tell you that. That's
I'll have to go and test it.
Marsh End Road.
Marsh End Road.
Junction of Alexander.
Excellent.
Green Park. You know the roundabout.
Oh, of course, yes. That's
Yeah.
my ward. So that,
I know it is.
hence I'm
Yeah, well,
asking.
we can't tell you everything.
Excellent. That's good news. Thanks, Chair. Quickly, the numbers of fault is quite below national average, which is very, very good. But at the same time, is it possible, because Manish was talking about the categories and all of that, can we report these, the faults by categories? Is that possible? And also where we have faults that are remaining by ward.
What do you mean report them by category?
To have a data somewhere, you have, we report the faults by category, or you manage them by categories.
Yeah, we manage them by category, but the
And
customer,
then you respond by the categories.
Correct.
Is
the
it
contractor does,
Yeah.
but we wouldn't put that out to the customer, really. Occasionally we would say it's a routine repair, or it's done, or it's delayed for power connection or something like that. If we started getting technical, saying we are treating your report as a category 2A or something.
And that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking that the faults we have, and you said you currently have 740 faults, 40 items. So of those 750, how many are category 1? How many are cat 2?
Okay.
And what area within the city, what's the distribution? Is it so many in one area?
Yes.
Because the level of the perception that people have across the city is that everywhere is dark.
No, so I can give you a tiny bit more detail on that, I think. Nandy, you'll have to correct me here. Around 400 of that 700 are cable faults, is that correct?
Yeah, but yeah, so they're blocks.
They're blocks of lights out. So as you've mentioned, that has more perceptive impact because it is a roundabout, or it is a footpath the whole length. So of course people tend to feel more at risk in those sorts of areas, or report it more because it's more observable than just to do, oh, one light's out. They don't care too often about that. So maybe that's, and as Andy said, we do have a slightly enhanced level of cable faults at the moment because a number of things have happened. As we said, all the cable is aging at the same time. So, you know, broadly speaking, we get, you know, as I've said in the report, up to £1 million worth of cable faults per year. But the other thing is we've had a very wet winter. So the ground moves quite a lot in Milton Keynes. And if you imagine an old cable under the ground that's on its last legs and the ground moves, we get more faults. So that's sort of a double whammy at the moment. We are allocating, because the government have given us additional grant money and things. So we are allocating more money towards that. So we think that in the next year or so, we should be able to catch up with most of the current known cable faults. But of course, as we've said, probably expect similar number to appear next year because it's sort of an ongoing thing for us. But that's probably why the 750 odd lights that are out at any given time appear, perception-wise, to be more significant than perhaps they are because they're in blocks, quite a lot of them at the moment.
I mean, I think to add to that, and it goes back to the comment made earlier. A lot of the cabling, we're responsible for 400,000 linear meters of cabling. And a lot of the cabling was installed, and it's not copper cabling; it's aluminium cabling, and aluminium deteriorates in the ground. So any sort of ground disturbance, excuse me, will cause an accelerated deterioration. And we've seen that on the V8 between the I think it's H6 and H8, where you've got a new power supply that's gone into the hospital, and although they've not directly dug through our cabling, it's disturbed the ground adjacent to it and caused a number of faults in those sections, which has resulted in a significant, outage. But we've got 3 crews, and if you've driven down there, certainly in the last couple of weeks, we've got 3 crews down there. They're working, and they're going to work on that until everything's back on. So we anticipate that to be about another 2 to 3 weeks worth of work.
I'm going to ask a few questions now, if that's okay, because I've got quite a lot. And then if I let you all go, I'll never get to ask a question. I want to go back to the scoring matrix because, Martin mentioned a red way from a bus stop to to civilization, I think is what you said. So this is a national framework, this scoring, or is this a Milton Keynes specific? The matrix. So for the cabling faults, I'm specific. I'm not talking about the individual lights. I kind of agree with Graham. I think where the cabling faults are and we've got multiple lights out, that's the feel of being in darkness. So I think focusing on that. So this is this matrix, yes. Okay. So but this is how we operate as an authority. Right. Okay. So for example, you said, so redways are 1, local access road 1, link road 2, main route 3, grid road 4. Okay, I understand those. So, but what would give a redway a more of a priority? So I'm trying to think about, so town centre score, I understand that, but what if you have an underpass that's next to a school that's not in a town centre? How would that score? Because obviously that's going to be used by lots of children. And so, but it's not in a town centre, it's a redway, but it's not a grid road. So I'm just trying to ascertain when would a redway get a higher priority score than a 1?
I think it's important to note that most of our underpasses that are under our grid roads, and most of the network or the cabling infrastructure is connected. So if we've got a fault on the grid road, it can affect the underpass as well. So the prioritization on the grid road being higher will cause, will assist the underpass itself. So if you're on a dual carriageway, high speed road, A-class road, major road, and it's a fault, that scores as highly as, that will score top on our matrix. And we had one on the V8. We had a problem on the V8 H3, and although that was an RTC and a green claim, but it knocked out all the underpasses. So what we did, because it was a green claim, it got fixed. It didn't fall into this normal matrix. It's repaired outside of that because it's an insurance claim, and that brought all the underpasses on. So, but it would have scored highly because it was on an A-class dual carriageway high speed road, and by that nature it would have been highly prioritised. Fix that, and the underpass is fixed as well.
Following on from that then, so I'm not thinking about an underpass now, I'm thinking about just a residential street, because I've got one in my ward that has not had a whole stretch of streetlights out for 18 months, and I appreciate it's low priority, but if its risk factor is 7, so it's scheduled maintenance, and so it will come on the programme when the other urgent things have been dealt with, what's to stop that fault sitting on that list indefinitely, because it's always getting superseded by grid road cable faults, anything like that?
Well, I think the fact that we've seen an accelerated level or a greater level of cable faults. I mean, I've got the number here of total cable faults that we've currently got. Some of those cable faults affect one light, 2 lights, and consequently they'll score lower. We've recognised the increase in the number of cable faults we've experienced. We've understood that actually we can't just leave all the grid roads we can't just repair all the grid roads and leave the estate roads, which is why what we've done is we've looked at allocating additional funds. So those additional funds, and I think you're talking about Collie Hill, And those additional funds will, and Collie Hill, it will be done next year because we've got additional funding that we next financial. Yeah, well, we were nearly there. But no, sorry, no. But what we're doing, we've got 2 full-time gangs of just doing cable faults. They will continue into April and work through the program that we've got for next year. I know Collie Hill's on that list, and just to give you a rough idea, to fix the cable fault on Collie Hill is 56,000 to recable what we need to cable. So it's not insignificant amounts of money. But if I've got the choice between a high-speed grid road and an estate road, as much as it pains me to have to do it, I've really got to go for the high-speed grid roads. But we've recognised that. We understand that the system is not perfect. It relies on funding. The funding then we've you know, with the funding, the grant award we've got for the next 4 years allows us to actually allocate more funding in that, certainly to clear the current backlog.
Thank you. I only use that example because obviously I know of it, and
Well,
you know,
Councillor Exxon does, as you know, as sort of championed the cause.
he has since 2023 or 2024, early on 2024. But I think my point was more around the duration of a fault. So because if you have something that's just going to indefinitely remain on a list, my thinking was, okay, if a cabling fault has been there for 12 months because it's never reached the level of priority and other things have overtaken it, could it not be that because there's a time mechanism within this matrix so that it would then be reviewed by an officer to say, okay, this has been on the list for, I say 12 months, it could be 18 months, it could be 14 months, but something that says, actually, you know what, this cabling fault, it's on a residential road, but actually we've had 50 residents reports, we've had constant contact from the ward councillors. Actually, somebody said they've injured themselves because the lights have been off. Is that a mechanism that we could look at in terms of considering moving forward?
Yes, I can't. The problem for us is I don't see any problem with the premise of saying that.
Yeah.
And so what that would do in reality is, in theory, that would potentially put it guaranteed into next year's programme, say, for instance. But if I get 100 cable faults on a grid road, I can't then override that and go, well, this is an old one, I've got to do it, I'm afraid. I can't do that grid road over there. So I can't ever have that, because, you know, it doesn't matter how much money we get from the council or the government, it's still a finite amount of money that has to be allocated. I think you will find that probably we will get on top of this and that sort of scenario won't happen. But I'm happy if you wanted to put something like that as a recommendation, that we will go away and see if we can, in some way, I can't say how we'll do that. If we'll look at if there's a mechanism that we could introduce that gives it an extra couple of points every 6 months or something, so that eventually it would work its way up. We've still got to have the prioritisation order, but it might work its way up so that it's not indefinite, I suppose. So
yeah, I think and I'm not even saying that once you review it at 12 months that automatically goes on the schedule. I'm just saying I feel like with the existing faults that go on for a long period of time, I think it would just be another, so as a ward councillor we can say we understand that the fault has been 18 months, but actually it's been assessed and this is the priority score, and unfortunately because of where it falls on, you know, I think it goes back to Manisha's point about communication. And I think so some of my other questions, which I'll just rattle through because we have gone on, I mean, we knew streetlights, we would talk about streetlights a lot, but this, you know, the programme of what cabling faults are going to be fixed. I mean, obviously I've seen great PR coming out from the council about the ones that are being fixed currently, but I think as councillors, if it exists, can you share it with us what that list is, when, you know, what the programme of works is, because I just think sometimes that communication is so key. And we're not saying share it with residents, but we're the interface, and you can give us more technical information that we should be able to disseminate to our residents, I think.
One thing that I've been here for, it seems like forever, with this authority, and one thing that we did historically was that if we had any program schemes that we felt were of key interest to ward members, we would, because we write to residents. So for example, at the moment we've got a plain and patch resurfacing program, £2 million worth of work. We're all over, Neath Hill, Bletchley, all over and we write to the residents. Now, I always copied ward councillors in. Now, I think there was a conscious decision at one point made not to burden ward councillors with routine notices for a resurfacing of a road or upgrading of a cable fault. Now, clearly, the feedback that you've given us tonight,
All the road closure things.
but that's a little bit different from the type of communication that we give to the residents. We give a bit more detail, but also there's a it can be done, and certainly in with respect to the cable faults, rather, and it could be shared with the committee. You probably don't want to hear about everything we do, because we do an awful lot of work in a year. But if it's in your respective ward, for example, Collie Hill, you would absolutely want to know about us doing that exactly, and we'll come and hand deliver that. The letter.
I think
but we can do more. I think that's what I'm saying. But we can always do more, but it's not. We don't want to sort of flood members with too much information.
So I think there's a couple of things. We can do an enhanced page on the website that can put out, next 6 months worth of cable works that we're planning. I believe I gave an undertaking at a previous iteration of this meeting to put our annual works programme up on the website as well and signpost you to that. So they're mechanisms to give you a sort of longer range view, and the public as well, which I think we can definitely do those things. We're still discussing them with our contractor at the moment. So I think when we talked about this, it might have been 1 or 2 sessions ago, we'd given our first version of works to them. We backwards and forwards it until March when it settles. So once it settles in March and we get some indicative timeframes from them, then I can post a lot of that up on the website. Okay.
And similarly, what we did when we looked at flooding, I know one of the recommendations was there was going to be a quarterly update in Councillors' News. So maybe another mechanism is to include a link to where all of this new information will be on the web page, or something. So you don't have to send a monthly email to all councillors. It's just that there's a section about upcoming, something like that. I think
there's a general piece here. I mean, obviously it's heightened because we're coming into the election period, but Akash will know particularly that we do lots of good stuff in highways, and when you get into the stats it shows, but if there's a weakness in highways, it's messaging and getting the message out there. So we really are, I've said this so many times, but we are trying to have a real push on our sort of informatory comms piece to members through Councillor News, updating website, but lots of news releases as well, press releases of what we're doing, where we're doing it and how we're doing it, because there's lots of money going into this from all sorts of ways, and there's lots of good work happening, and we're just not giving the information. So we've got to have a real push on that.
And obviously use us. We are, we are one of the main channels. Yeah, use us as a vessel of communication to, because residents are reasonable when they're in possession of good knowledge, and when councillors are in possession of good informed knowledge, it makes such a difference. And I think there is so much good work going on here, and the statistics show it. But I just think just firming up that comms piece with all of these little tweaks is going to be really, really invaluable. Anybody else? Anything? Questions? Tony?
Just wanted to ask, it's very, very straightforward one. Do we have any default planning for this aging cables? Is there something in place
Well,
that we can have information about?
we have spent probably in excess of £4 million over the last 4 to 5 years on this. We've been a little bit reactive, and until we really catch up with what we know we've got on the ground, it's difficult to plan. You know, what we do, we get the cable network gets tested. So we test 8,500 columns, and we do test the network. So we know where, and I am not an electrician, you probably figured out from tonight, but we test I think it's the impedance of the cable, and that gives us an indication as to the expected life. So we have got some visibility of where our most vulnerable cables are, but that doesn't mean it might last for another 5-10 years. And at the moment, because we're in a bit of a reactive phase and dealing with the sort of the heightened level of cable faults, it is quite difficult to start then planning for going forward. So it's an ambition, and it's something we do absolutely need to do strategically, because it will then I think inform obviously an understanding of exactly what we need to spend. You know, 400,000 linear meters, you're talking 150 pound a linear meter. You do the math, it's quite a significant amount of funding needed, which is why we can't plan too far, but we're not really at that position at the moment. We need to deal with what we've got in front of us, catch up, clear that backlog, and then start planning going forward.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything before I sum up?
Can I give the recommendation?
Yep.
Yeah. I think more in the lines was what Tony was also saying. Yeah. See, firstly, I think I'm really happy with the services that are there. You know, I know it comes across cribbing when we see a lot more people talking behind us. You know that the lamps are not there, lamps are not there. And the issue might be is from a counselor casework to your team and delivery. And so my recommendation is, you know, if you can produce a report of those 750 cases, for example, when was it registered in council casework, if it came through council casework or whatever customer services system, when was it picked up by your team and when it was delivered? And that will clearly show that by the time it hit you guys, you were within the SLA, whether it's national guidelines or not, or you were well within. And maybe the improvement might be is how to fill that gap. Because I've got live cases where it's taken more than 2 weeks to get replies, you know, leave aside work done, yeah? And those might be the minor 1, 2, 3%, but this kind of report will easily kill it, you know.
I think, Manish, though, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but I think perhaps that's more of a customer services interface with counsellor, which... If
proven, if that is what the bottleneck is, if proven. If they come back and say, no, we report on the same day, and it goes on the GIS or AWX system, whatever the system is.
Can I just clarify one?
All the open casework, so it's not inquiries.
Sure.
This is just casework. There's nothing on here for you at all at the moment. So I don't know if you think you've got any open.
So I've got on my system casework open from 2022 for a street light.
That's not on here.
No, I'm just saying. So there is.
So if you want to send that over with some, you've got a casework number, I can look at.
Yeah, and I've got one more. The email I've sent you.
Yeah.
Which is about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Manish, can I just suggest that you clearly, if Graham can't see your reports and you say there are reports, that needs to be a conversation.
That's an offline.
Yeah, that's an offline conversation.
We can do it. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know who else has tried the new counsellor casework form, but
that's the form that started yesterday.
Yesterday, yes, I really like it. So if you've not used it yet, it's really easy. And And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes in the old councillor casework system, they did prefer if we reported the streetlight directly in the system.
So, you know, as a general piece, it's not really for me to say particularly, but if you're trying to do a service request, i.e. there's a pothole, there's a streetlight, that really should go through report it.
Yeah.
Casework is for things that haven't been resolved through report it, or something that you want to escalate a little bit or escalate to me effectively. So, because there's a lot on, I'm just looking through here. We run, just to give you an idea, broadly, we run 50, 60 pieces of casework at any given time, turns over. But I'm just looking at it, a lot of these are pothole reports. There's some that are blocks of lights out, centre road line faded, bits and pieces like that. And that's fine, it goes through our system. But the reality is it would probably get done just as quick if it went through report it, because you're asking us to just go and fill a pothole or something. So yeah, but if you've got casework or specific locations, maybe you need to just contact me and we'll just pick up on that separately.
Yeah, just to make sure that your records are aligning, because I feel like that's what you...
I'm in the council case.
Okay.
It is all within the council record. But again, I can talk to you.
Yeah. Drop me a line and we'll pick that up.
But my recommendation is still is you can get the data out, as Tony was also saying, say how good the certainly will help.
But that 750 is lights that are currently out. As we said, 2/3 of that is cable fault, so they're sort of longer term ones. The ones that, the 100 that have been reported today by the customers, they're just going through the system and they will get done in the next few days, probably, if they're just a single light out.
Yeah.
So we've got KPIs that we could share that show you how many lights we did within 14 days last month, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we can produce that.
And also the average time taken, because though it's 14 days, the average may be less. Well, I would hope it's less. But
quite often it's 3 and 4 days, actually, that kind of number.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit of more comfort.
So
Sure.
So we can produce some KPIs to give you some better insight.
Considering you sit on the board of customer service, just say the last 1 week.
Manish, your microphone isn't on.
That's it. Sorry, I was just, for a change, I was appreciating. I was saying, because you sit on the board, I'm telling you in the last 1 or 2 weeks, I'm getting so much good, better, and quick responses. So just pass my appreciation as well.
Okay, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Akash.
I was just going to say, I do disagree with Councillor Varma's recommendation. I just think that's more reactive, and I think our recommendation should be more proactive, forward-looking, and maybe about to just be, if there's a councillor casework request about lights, you would maybe spend a bit more time giving the detail about whether it's Cat 1, Cat 2, and that would be a good recommendation. So not general public casework, but if a councillor casework comes through about street lighting, road roads, or whatever, you might spend a bit more time doing a reply to a councillor, because then they can distribute that information, and that's, I think, better in everyone's interests.
I think my recommendations are more on the cabling faults, because I think from the discussions that we've had, I think we're agreeing that, like Graham said, one light out in a row of many, you don't really notice, fixed in 28 days, happy out. But it's when you've got the persistent cabling faults that people notice. We know that people are noticing, but I agree, we are trying to be proactive, but if Councillor Verma wants some sort of KPIs and officers are happy to I think I personally think that it sounds like Manish wants confirmation that stuff that he's reported has fallen within the SLA, and I think that you guys can probably have that conversation offline. Are you agreed on that? Yeah. Okay. Mo.
Thank you, Chair. I think we all talked about 750 line. It's cross MK. It's not just one particular word. So sharing a data of 750, how many has been fixed into one ward member doesn't really reflect the whole city. I believe, if each number of light been fixed on north or south or whichever ward, maybe you can share it once a month. And there's this much amount of light this area has been fixed this month.
I'm only speaking on what Manish was talking about. I haven't gone over what. So what I'm going to talk about are the cabling faults. So what Manish is talking about is the more individual lights. Yeah, Mike.
So I asked for two things. Yeah, one is the breakup of 750 to ensure and it's a one time. It's not like you have to do it every time. To ensure. Majority of us here said we think there's an issue because we do not get enough communication back when we report an issue.
Can I just come back to a Manish's point? It's okay to have the data, say 90%, 60% is done. The 750 is cross city. Having one specific member of the ward having a data doesn't really analyze anything.
For the whole committee. And for me and Graham to have an offline is on one or two cases.
That's okay, Chair.
The data is for the committee, not for me more.
Thank you.
I'm a bit confused of what you think, because our KPIs are across all the work that is issued to our contractor. They're not across the 750 that came in when we pressed the button last week. So when I produced the report, so it could be 600 today, it could be 800 today. I haven't looked today, but what that'll show you is it'll show that 200 or 300 of them have turned over in the correct period, but the 400 are still the cable faults that we knew about because we know cable faults take longer. So I don't think that'll.
Can I infer from that then that the cabling faults are having a detrimental effect on SLAs, or no, they're separate?
They are separate. Yeah,
I think what we could do, we were talking about information going out on the website or in councillor news of works programs. I think as a news piece, we could do a bit more proactive, and that's what I was talking about anyway, because it's the from the stats, it's the good news story anyway. So we could potentially be pushing out there a lot more. Did you know we fixed 2,000 lights last month within 5 days or whatever it is, which is in line with our requirements or something like that. So that's putting some sort of KPI stats out there to all members. I'm happy to look into doing something like that.
Okay, so Manish and Mo, would that satisfy you? So separate from the cabling faults, a communication piece on the non-cabling fault lights, something whether it be in a quarter, a month, to be decided by
general performance.
That will go into councillors' news.
Yeah.
Is that? Are you happy with that?
You're going nowhere with that. In any case, I was more than happy with that. So
Okay.
That's what
Right. So then, in terms of cabling faults, actually, there's one other thing, Martin. You're going to pick up Martin's bug in the mapping system.
I would.
That's
an action point, not a
I will
recommendation.
try and pick that up with customer services. Whether we can solve that or not, I'm not sure.
We'll both.
You'll both pick that up.
I'm going to be meeting with the operations, and Graham's going to attack it from both ends.
Yeah, okay. And then I'm going to put consider in front of all of this because I appreciate the wording might not be quite right, but publishing a rolling schedule of cabling fault fixes for the next time to be determined, 6 months, 12 months. You're going to put the annual programme of works on the website. You're going to explore some communication in councillors' news about the programme of works and cabling fault fixes, whether that be directing us to where the information will be on the website or whether it's going to be specifically in councillors' news.
Probably a stat kind of piece as well.
Yeah, okay. And then you will consider looking at the risk matrix and I don't know how to word this, but any fault that reaches a certain time frame, whether that be 6 months, 12 months, and considering whether there's a case for adding a point so that we're not always there's
If I give an undertaking to say that we will look at that over the next month, I don't know how we'll do that, and obviously I'll speak to the portfolio holder, and if we can get that agreed in some way as a mechanism, that I'll then formally write to the chair to say this broadly is what I think you were trying to achieve, so this is what we're able to do.
yeah, I think you kind of understand what
Yeah,
our intention is as a committee, and we're happy to meet you halfway with what you think is achievable in consultation with the cabinet member, and then obviously we can report back that to the committee. I have definitely missed something. Have I? Did I miss anything? No, but comms. Give us all the information you can so that we can be your vessels. I think that was what I can't take credit for that. That was you, Akash. So, but yeah, so we will finalise the precise details of those recommendations, because I think it was a bit all over the shop there. But we will, and we'll send that out. Anybody else? Any additional recommendations they want to raise? No. Okay, so the last item is to consider the work plan, and obviously we've come to the end of this cycle for this committee. So I'm going to suggest, as we discussed earlier with the tariff junction programme, that there's an information item in February 2027 that goes on to the forward plan. And then also, George, this might be a bit far ahead, but I've put September 2028, another information item on how the new pesticides policy is working, which was adopted this month.
And I think we could look into transport plan as well, maybe
Well,
a
it'll be-
year's time,
Before it is adopted.
yeah.
Okay, we'll look at that, because obviously it's out for consultation at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it did
Well,
come, but it did come to this committee.
No, I know, I was there. I'm just saying, once
Before
it's
it's
full,
adopted.
yeah,
Okay.
it should be, and it might not require the same depth, because when it came for the first time, we actually went for it.
Yeah. We've been kicking around a few ideas. I think don't quote me. I think a pre-decision scrutiny on the LTP is something that we're suggesting as well, but I can't remember for certain.
Yeah, we can put it with a question mark, because obviously I know it's the DD for the consultation was taken in August, and then it's only out to consultation now, so we'll see how that fits in with the plan, but it can go on the long list. And did anybody have anything else to add to that, for whoever might sit on this committee next year? Yeah. No. Well, as this is the last meeting of this council year, I can't believe it, for this committee, I should say, not. Can I just thank everybody for all their contributions? I do feel like we've done some good pre-decision scrutiny work, and I feel like we've made some good recommendations to officers. And also today, I think actually we've done a really good job of being the voices of our residents, which is what our job is to do. So, okay, thank you guys very much. It was very interesting, both items. It is 20:48. We'll close the meeting. Thank you all.